He was going to build this boat full-time by himself. Can you build a steel boat? Oh yeah, I took welding in high school. And he said 3 years tops.
Can you imagine designing and building your own dream boat? How would you do it? What would it look like? How long would it take? Thomas and Linda are an extraordinary couple who did just that, and this is how they did it.
Well, we've lived aboard a sailboat full-time for 38 years. And our first boat was a 34-foot sailboat that he was building.
When you met me.
Lee Creekmore Design. He was building when I met him, way back when I was like a innocent little 21-year-old. And that boat was home for 16 years. And we sailed it we finished it kind of in Florida, sailed up to Maine, finished it up there, took off for 3.5 years and went cruising. Did the East Coast of the United States, all through the Bahamas, all through the Caribbean, South and Central America. And then he started designing.
Yeah, before we went to Central America, we started just drawing it up because we were going to go through the Panama Canal and take off and go out to the Pacific.
And started designing this boat.
Yeah.
And then he wanted to go back to the States, and he was going to build this boat full-time by himself. Well, I didn't even know he knew how to weld. And I'm like, can you build a steel boat? Oh yeah, I took welding in high school.
Yeah.
And I said, well then how long do you think it'll take you to build it? And he said, 3 years tops. That was the sentence, 3 years tops.
Right.
And I thought, well, okay, that's doable. And 9 years later.
But see, I didn't take into consideration that you need to sleep during the day. 8-hour days that end up being 24-hour days.
Yeah.
See, so that's why it took longer.
And,
Right.
If I just would work 24 hours a day, I could have put in 3 years.
Well, and then we had to figure out how to pay for it, so I started my own importing business. So we had sailed to Guatemala on our 34-foot boat, and I fell in love with all their hand-woven tapestry fabrics and stuff. So I thought, well, I can buy a bunch of stuff and wholesale it and sell it throughout the United States, and that's what I did.
Yeah.
So I was running that business by myself pretty much full time, either in Guatemala or on the road selling, and he was building Saganka.
Yeah, she'd make the money, I'd spend it.
But kind of the catalyst of all this, our 34-foot boat was great for the two of us, and we were always figuring out how to make a little bit of money to keep going. And so the idea with this boat is it could be our home and our business. So now for 20 years, we have chartered in the Abacos, mostly with youth groups, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, church groups. We do a lot of family charters, a couple families will get together. We did a 4-generation charter. So great grandma and grandpa, bump. We had from age 80 to 4.
Yeah.
We did that the summer of 2019.
Yeah, that was a blast.
Yeah, and and then actually in 2019, Thomas was diagnosed with throat cancer. And luckily, we had health insurance here in the Dominican Republic and got the best care imaginable.
Oh, yeah.
Everything.
If I ever get sick, I don't mind getting sick here.
No, it was wonderful.
I mind getting sick, but I wouldn't mind. I mean, if you had to get sick, this is not a bad place to do it.
It changed things for us, obviously, but
Yeah, we had the best doctors. They become friends of ours. Yeah, when we have a big feast, we invite them.
Yeah, but that kind of and then also in the Abacos, we had Hurricane Dorian hit. So that demolished what was our second home, running charters, and now COVID has kind of stopped things. So we're in a little bit of a transition.
Yeah.
We got a farm calling us, and we still have Saganka, although we're sort of.
Yeah. We think we're gently starting to think about selling the boat and or business, but I'm still I think I can put a couple more years in. Linda doesn't want to. So I'll probably end up doing a couple years as we're developing, clientele again after the coronavirus thing. But so
we'll see where it goes. But it's she's been a great home. She's been a great business. We're lucky, she's
a good ship.
Yeah.
She's a good sailing ship. One day we'll get you guys out on a boat because I know you're going to be coming back through and or something. So you guys will see what it feels like. So she's a good ship.
Yeah.
While we're talking like this, let's. I'm going to give you just a few numbers of the boat. A lot of people go, well, how much does she sleep and whatnot? Well, we do sleep 20 plus us, and we can actually sleep more. But the boat she weighs 73 tons when she's fully loaded. We've taken her down to 63 tons on a lift out because we like to stay as low as we can. That's removing water, which is 4 tons of water, 3 tons of fuel. We can dump that, not dump it, but use it before we get to port. She has, oh man, I had all these numbers in my head before. There are 57 miles of the welding rod. When you MIG weld the boat together, it's 57 miles of the wire that comes out of there. There's 8 miles of wire that is in stick welding, what most people are used to. And then I have no idea, TIG weld also, but I don't know how much that is because I never kept track of the TIG wire. So you're talking an immense amount of thing. And when we painted, there are over 2 tons of paint on the boat. There's 4,000 pounds of paint. And I know that because we would go buy paint from the Navy scrap yards. When the Navy would paint a ship, they always over-ordered. And so you'd have these big buckets of paint. And then when they finished the job, an in-between guy, middleman, he would go out and buy all this spare paint, and then we bought it. And it was bought in big lots. So I know, because I would only go up and bring 1,000 pounds at a time, it'd take me 4 trips to do it all. So that's the amount of weight that's paint on the inside and outside of the boat. So
we got to tell about our lead.
The lead.
Oh my
You'll love
gosh.
this. We had the Get the Lead Out party. My father and mother lived probably about an hour and a half away from where we built the boat. And once every 2 months, every 3 months, I would jump in the truck and we would take a long way.
We had a 64 Ford pickup truck.
Yep, 64 pickup truck. And I went to every tire place that changed your tires. Well, they have those little wheel weights. So I would go there.
Those little lead weights.
The little lead weights.
Yeah.
They could gather their lead weights up and they could get 5 cents a pound for them at the scrap yard. So I talked to the people and said, listen, you get a nickel a pound for it. I'll pay you a dime for it if you promise not to touch it. What? Yeah. I'll come in. I'll clean your lead bins out. I got a bucket here. I will weigh the lead out. I'll pay you 10 cents a pound. And then I will take it and I'll be here every 3 months. And that's what I did.
We did it for 3 years.
We did it for 3 years.
Collected weight.
Yep. And in 3 years, that and amongst other leads, we collected 15 tons, about 30,000 pounds of lead. And that's about what's in the boat. It's 30.
And then we had to
tons.
melt it all down, and we made 40-pound like lead. You call them pigs, but it's like a loaf of bread.
Yeah.
Of weight of lead.
Yeah.
And melted that. We had this big party, a Get the Lead Out party.
Yeah.
And people I'm like, I'll make a bunch of chili, beer, and people came to help us like melt all this lead.
Yeah.
And then move all the lead weight.
Right. And how we melted the lead was all the wood you see in the boat was actually given to us in standing trees. Well, after you cut the tree down, before you start to mill it, you have a lot of sapwood on the outside. So you have to get rid of that to cut it. Well, all that sapwood, which dries out, was the heat source that we used to melt the lead. So it didn't cost us anything to melt the lead. It was literally all the excess trees that we did not use. So that's how we melted all the lead.
Yeah, so now that's all down in the keel, and some cemented in and some free weight that we can move around if we need to.
Right.
But that was part of the deal.
Oh yeah.
So I guess I have one question. So this is a Thomas design.
Yes.
You didn't find any other plans of a boat?
No, well, the design in my head came from the lookings of, I mean, nobody invents new, but it was, it's a crossbreed between the Carolina fish boat, which you see in the Carolinas. It's like the boats you see here in the harbor. Mm-hmm. Kind of like that. If you look at a few of the wheelhouses, it looks very similar. Mm-hmm. Yep. And then up in the northeast coast, there's what they call the sardine carrier, and it's a little bit mixed between the two. And
so you looked at did you look at the blueprints?
Not the blueprints, just kind of that. I knew the tonnage I wanted, and I knew the shape. I wanted the shape and the seaworthiness. Those guys go out to sea no matter what the weather. They go out there, it's hurricane force winds out there, and they're fishing.
We want a boat that could sail around the world. I mean,
Yeah.
that she was tough and ready to go.
Yeah, so I used those two. Then I started to draw it, and I drew it up. And then I went literally around the world by mail and talked to several designers to work with me on this.
Steel boat designers.
And one guy I really liked, because he was so straightforward, he said, I am not at all interested in designing a boat like that. Okay? And he was like from South Africa. Another guy wanted to change every design I had, but we found a fellow by the name of Bruce Roberts. Who
we're still friends with.
We're still friends. He is an awesome guy. And he says,
he's designed steel boats forever.
Yeah, I'll work with you on that. And we toss things back and forth. He says, I'd like to do this. And I go, no, I kind of like that. And it's really funny, as we toss back things and forth, because he builds a boat similar but different. And so he liked some of my ideas, and he did change a few ideas that it was good. But we worked really well with him. So, and he had a AutoCAD program. So after we drew the boat, we took and made a set of patterns that 3/4 of an inch equal a foot. I built a model about as long as that table there, and it was to scale. And I used the prints. His computer spit it all out for me, and he gave me a little roll. He says, "Oh, you want to build a model? Here's the thing." So he gave me a print that was so I could build the boat firsthand, and that's how you figure out how, because the steel sheets came in 20-foot long by 8-foot wide sheets, 10 feet wide on some of them. So they're big sheets of metal. You don't want to just go cutting it out. So you want to make sure that every piece of metal that you cut out, that it's cut out of the right place, out of the right sheet. So that's what the building the model did for us. It really saved. I mean, I had like no scrap. I mean, literally no scrap when the boat was done. And all the steel was delivered on one day. It all came on a flatbed truck, and we drug it off with a tractor, and that was it. Boom. Truck came in the morning, and it was all dropped on the ground, and then he took off, and then we built. So,
and what's the length, the overall?
The length overall is, if you go to a boat yard, they always want to do every piece. That's the boom and the bowsprit. So we're 78 feet overall. But the U.S. Coast Guard changes regulations at 65 feet. So I am that shy of 65 feet in the morning. I'm bigger if the sun shines on it, because the boat will expand that much, so I got to be real careful. If they're going to measure me out, I want to see them early in the morning.
65 feet on deck and
65 feet
overall.
on, yeah, 78 overall.
And 17.5-foot beam.
She's 17.5 foot of beam. She
6.5 foot draft.
6 feet 2 is when she's empty sailing.
And we've had her up to 14 knots.
And we've had her up to 14 knots. And that was unbelievably fantastic sailing. I mean, it was like, it was a cold front that came through, and it was a squeeze. It was like the perfect storm. You had wind blowing one way and another, and we got in there, and it just like, we call that hauling donkey. We were really moving fast. So